So, welcome to Chapter 3. We're talking about socialization, lifelong process of social interaction through which individuals acquire self-identity and the physical, social skills needed for survival in society. Basically, everything that you think of as being human, you had to learn. Someone had to teach you. There's actually very little about the human animal that's instinctual at all. Unlike wild animals that, pop out, I was watching this thing about baby cobras, and they don't have to be taught. They pop out, they're ready to go. Venom, wanting to hunt right away. Unlike a human child who has to be socialized, has to be taught everything and be cared for a long period of time before it's able to do anything. Now, the study of the connection between society and the sociology process and nature and biology is called sociobiology. We mentioned it once before. Again, they're looking for things like cultural universals, things that we find in every society that couldn't possibly have been transmitted from like one society to the other, but is part of the human animal that all societies make. Things like language. We have two themes that are going to be over and over in the course. Nature versus nurture, obviously. Sociology, most of the time on the nurture side. Theme 2, us versus them. Can I have an us and a strong us identity without there being a them? So I'm a huge University of Texas fan. Can I really have a University of Texas without a University of Oklahoma to hate and to always be battling against? For Austin Community College, ACC, we don't seem to have a very strong sense of school identity, which is strange because this is a great school. You get people like myself, PhDs, teaching you small classes. Yet very few people wear ACC, and I'm proud of ACC, but everyone always wears Texas or Texas A&M jerseys. And that could be because there's no them that we battle, I don't know, San Antonio Community College. We don't have that oppositional relationship. There's no them, so there's not a strong sense of us. So going to our book, the book talks about the work of the Harlows, in which they took young monkeys. They constructed a setup in which two mothers that they created, one was warm but gave no food. The other one was basically chicken wire but did give food. So you would think, oh, the babies are going to go where there's food. No, actually, they clinged to the one that was actually more like a mother, something more comforting. So clearly, there's something about primates that it's not just the food that we want. We yearn for something else and cling to something else even as a young child. There's also cases of what's called the isolated children or feral children. One of our big figures, Kingsley Davis, found a young girl like this. And basically, in both cases, there was nothing that you thought of as human. They couldn't walk or talk or gesture, and they salivated, couldn't control themselves. They had to be taught these things. These were not naturally human occurring things. So again, there's a discussion of maltreatment in your book. Oddly enough, most maltreatment is not physical abuse, but in fact, neglect, and it hurts children in so many different ways. Again, we're trained to think of child abuse as, broken bones or bruises, but there is a long-standing pain that comes from a child being neglected. Now, we moved on to Sigmund Freud, founder of psychology and analysis. Not too many people actually practice analysis in its classic form, but his sketch of how the personality develops is interesting in that he has this conflict idea of the id your base desires, aggression, sex, food, your drives, versus the superego, which is sort of what society has taught you how to be. And your ego is the place where you consciously make decisions between the two. Piaget, a Swiss psychologist, a very valuable model that he comes up with about stages. He's got 4 stages: sensory motor stage. This is, again, if you've ever seen a child, everything new in their environment, they stick in their mouth, they're chewing on it. Why? They're just trying to figure out what's food, what's not food. If you take the child's toy, favorite toy, put it behind your back, the child cries. Why? Because it doesn't understand that the object is still there, it's just behind your back. If it's out of sight, it's disappeared forever. Later, they begin to get things like the objects are permanent and just out of sight. This is pre-op stage. They can solve problems, use symbols, etc. Then there's a concrete operational stage, 7 to 11. Tangible objects, consequences of action, and then finally the formal operation stage, a highly abstract thought, and this is 12 on, which is why we don't, spend a lot of time trying to teach, 8-year-olds things like calculus. Why? Because their brain can't think in those highly abstract terms. Kohlberg and Gilligan, go ahead and read. More importantly, the symbolic interactionists, the development of self-concept. So Cooley, the looking glass self. This is a super important concept. It's not how I think of me. It's not what you think of me internally that matters. It's what I think you think of me that matters. I know, right? What? It's what I think you think of me. So again, if you tell me, dude, you rock, then I think I rock. You could quietly think I'm a jerk, but it's what you tell me. It's what I think you think of me that matters. I have always been a sociology person, even before I knew it. When I was younger, everybody here had like a middle school, high school where like the cheerleaders or kick team or whatever got to wear their uniform on game day, the whole game day. And had one of these cheerleader girls in one of my classes, and I snapped one day. Just couldn't take the fact that they had all of this attention. And she was sitting at the front of my row in class, and I got my friend, and I said, all right, I'm going to start pointing and laughing. Her name was Tara. I'm going to start pointing and laughing at Tara. And of course, at first, she turns around and she's like, you social insect, you don't matter to me at all. But, as we laughed, then of course other people started laughing because it was middle school and people just laugh because there's somebody laughing. And she eventually got so upset she ran out of class. What was going on there? It wasn't me that she was necessarily bothered by. It was the idea that people were laughing at her. Her concept of others laughing at her, right, was very abhorrent to her. Because again, it's not what I think of me. It's not what you think of me internally. It's what I think you think of me that matters. Now we get Mead, the idea of role taking. You've actually probably used Mead. If you ever used the term significant other, oh, that's, Bob's significant other. That concept comes from Mead. Now, initially he was talking about people that were so important to you that you would rein in your own desires and thoughts to make sure that they had a positive thought of you. And the first person that was probably like this was probably your mom. And not in a Freudian way, but just as in that person that, would give you that talk of, like in my case, I'm so disappointed in you. That was a terrible speech. I would take a grounding or a beating any day, but that speech was really, really awful because, your mom thinking that you were bad really mattered. Later, that becomes a person, let's say, that you marry, and that's where we use the term now, significant other, because, again, this is a person later in your life that, again, matters so much, their opinion matters so much that you're going to, rein in your own quirky behavior to hopefully make them happy with you. So there's also discussion of the I and the me. It can be very confusing. I is internal. Me is the more social face that you put out, but both of them you got through social interaction. To add even more confusion, another set of stages, Mead's stages. Now there are 3 of these. The preparatory stage, this is where kids they're just repeating what they see. They just mime what they see. They don't understand about exclusive roles. 2 and 3-year-olds will play and they go, okay, now I'm going to be the mommy and you be the daddy. They don't understand about exclusive roles. Next is the play stage, where we start getting the idea of, certain people have certain roles, not everyone can be the pitcher. Not everyone is the batter. There's roles and exchanges in games. And then finally, there's game stage, in which you learn all the elaborate rules in a game. There's also the concept of what's Mead called the generalized other. Now, this isn't a person. This is society. This is when, people do things like, pick up trash or return a wallet that they found. And we ask them, why do you do such a thing? And they say things like, in a good society, I'd want people to do this for me. So I have a concept of the generalized other. There's discussion of primary, secondary, and tertiary socialization. Look through that. That's one of these things that I'm going to do occasionally to say, hey, did you do the reading? Then there's what's called the Agents of Socialization. And we're going to pick up the Agents of Socialization in part 2.